When I post content, in this case I am speaking of Outriders content, I make a real attempt to read the comments that viewers leave on those uploads, and you normally get your whole gambit of responses from "the game is dead" all the way up to "the game works fine, you just need to learn how to play it correctly." And as someone that has been creating and posting content to YouTube since 2014, I've learned to apply my own filters to these responses, and I try to find those really interesting ideas that viewers often create. Now, what I am always on the hunt for are those posts that aren't wildly bombastic, but in their own way, they get you to step outside your current train of thought, and even for a short moment, consider what they are posting as a possible reality. What's going on, everybody? It's LtBuzzLitebeer, and as I was looking over past comments, I was directed to a brief PC Gamer article with a really interesting headline that got me thinking. But before we get into today's video, in case you aren't yet a sub, please smash that sub button for more intensive Outriders content, and don't forget to ring the bell to receive all future upload notifications from my channel. Let's get this one going. Three days ago, PC Gamer splashed a brief write-up of the upcoming legendary drop rate changes onto their webpage, and the article itself was nothing truly noteworthy, as it was essentially a compressed debrief of what to expect from the PCF team this week. But what really caught my attention was that headline. Developer finally accepts that Outriders grind is just too much, and then they briefly touched on the reasoning behind this change, stating, "Since launch, players have complained about how these in-game weapons and items are doled out, and not just the drop rate, but the various gates placed around acquiring specific types." As I normally do, I will leave a link to this article in the video description in case you want to read it over for yourselves, and as I've said before, it's quite short and shouldn't take you more than a few minutes. But for now, let's get back to that headline because it did its job. I mean, it caught my attention, but how it struck me was with a more intellectual angle than a typical full frontal headline just designed to knock your heads off. We've been receiving a steady stream of information coming from the PCF squad, usually stating that they've been taking the players' feedback into account type of stuff. And when it comes to these incoming legendary drop rate changes, the level brackets, the anti-dupe system, and the luck mechanics, it has all been painted as proactive responses to what we have wanted. As in, we the player base has been politely requesting that these items be installed. So out of good faith and listening to the players, the team at PCF has heard our cries and is giving us exactly what we wanted. I mean, it all sounds quite benevolent and romantic in terms of scope, and that is how the narrative is being painted for all to read. But what this PC Gamer headline did for me is it opened my eyes to a completely new perspective. One, and just being honest here, that I had not entirely embraced or even considered. Now, whereas we are being told that these changes for the legendary loot and all the other mechanisms that are in place to make us feel rewarded are because we have been asking for them, well, here is PC Gamer coming in with a hot take of the changes are happening because the developer has finally accepted that the Outriders grind is just too much. Almost, and this is where my thumbnail was derived from, but almost as if grind guilt has set in from the inside of the studio. Now, I've often referred back to this IGN interview with the Outriders game director, I think it's Bartosz Kmita, hopefully I didn't butcher that pronunciation, where he was quoted as saying, "We think that there are a lot of cool games on the market, and people maybe don't have any more time to spend 300 hours to basically grind one item." And of all the statements the individual team members at PCF have been quoted as saying, this particular quote has been repeated a million times over and has clearly not aged well. I honestly don't know if the studio finally came to its senses and had an epiphany of sorts when it realized that Outriders was the exact hellish grind that Kmita stated it was not. However, when you start to analyze the mechanics that are hard-baked into the in-game loot, like the low drop rates on only the first 4 pieces on a CT15, the previously hidden level brackets for certain highly sought-after items, the heavy amount of dupes that we receive, and now this luck system that was finally outed in the latest dev team blast over on Reddit, it is clear that the developers were headed in a direction 180 degrees from Kmita's vision. The way he paints his version of the endgame is one of endless amounts of gratification flying out of those pods. What we got was 2.5 months of endless grinding with hidden mechanics, loot gates, and mediocre chances of actually getting loot to drop. It kind of made me chuckle when I read this Outriders grind headline, and I envisioned an actual developer playtesting the endgame and grinding for that Akari chest piece or that Seismic Commander helmet. Over and over, they hit those CT-15s, and each and every time, they are either met with the reality that 0 legendaries just flew out of the pod, or they just received a couple items that they have seen like a zillion times before. Eventually, they just lose it and throw their controllers and smash their keyboards, waving their fist up in the air while screaming "F you, Cannonball." In reality, this glamorous thought brought on by that headline is probably far from the truth. The studio saw the dwindling player counts, they knew that the root cause was the botched loot drops, and they decided to make a change, albeit one that we the gamers have been screaming for now for months in an attempt to save this franchise. In reality, cranking up the legendary drop rates by 100% is only going to hold back that inevitable tidal wave for so long. The team at PCF has made a long list of interesting and, in my opinion, not needed balance changes, whereas they could have been concentrating all their collective firepower on the major infrastructure issues that have plagued Outriders since launch. You know, the sign-in issues, the inventory wipes, and the sketchy player-to-player multiplayer connections that induce infuriating amounts of lag and desync. Instead, we have seen major back-end drops hit the game that haven't done much to actually balance out the classes any more than the first day this game launched. And what stings the most is that I personally love what this game could be. I wouldn't be posting content about it, streaming it, or dedicating a large chunk of my Discord server to this IP if I didn't think it had 2 legs to stand on. The combat is awesomely addictive and frenetic. The amount of skills and class nodes are tremendous. And then there are those insane abilities that are always on tap and ready to just melt our targets. Assuming that this next round of fixes will finally bring some much needed stability to Xbox users that have been plagued by consistent sign-in issues, Outriders will be at the point that it may just start to enjoy a small bit of infrastructure balance. Of course, there is still a monumental amount of work to be done to finally get Stadia users into the cross-platform fold, and for the love of God, can the finance department at People Can Fly finally approve the purchase of worldwide dedicated multiplayer servers? But if this patch can get the loot game into a state of functionality, Outriders may finally progress from a game that was still learning to crawl to a game that finally stood up and took its first few unassisted steps. What happens next, as in DLC or the much needed expansion and or a rework for Expeditions, is the next hurdle on the drawing board, assuming that every cross-platform of the player base and their chosen platforms are finally able to sign in. Can PCF finally shed the ghosts of the past and fully flesh out the Outriders universe? With the implementation of the loot drop buffs and other items, we may finally get the start of that answer later this week. As I always do with all my Outriders uploads, I would like to invite you all to join my community Discord server. Just check in the video description, click on the open invite link, accept those rules, and you are in. Now once there, our mod team will be there to assist you as you acclimate yourselves to the awesome collection of resources now at your disposal. We've got channels for tips and tricks, photos, a full build guide section with artwork, and of course the ever popular LFG, or looking for group channels for both carries and farming. Maybe you want to discuss a wacky new build concept, post a pic of your latest loot drop, or find a group of hardcore grinders to squad up with to hit CT15 content. Don't get frustrated waiting for a broken matchmaker system to finally place you into a group that is already probably AFK. Just join the Discord, and in a matter of minutes you can find a group to match your needs and be in a live chat room, on mics, crushing your chosen content, and truly playing this game as it was intended to be experienced. In our Discord community, we've got every angle of Outriders covered for you, and a whole lot more. As always, I look forward to reading your feedback in the comment section below. Don't forget to smash that sub button and ring the bell to receive all future upload notifications from my channel. If you could take the time to rate and or share this video, it would be greatly appreciated. Don't forget to find and follow me over on Twitch with weekly CT carry sessions with viewers. Join my aforementioned Discord server for all things Outriders related. And of course, follow me on Twitter, posting on most things gaming related. Links to all of these platforms in the video description below. Until the next one, this is LtBuzzLitebeer, signing off.